What is up, Valiant Warriors? Yeah, who's back? Back again. Who's back? Tell a friend. Anyway, yes, episode 23, Valiant Watch. The one and only Matthew Klein is back on the show. Get ready to get into some crazy stuff because we're going to be talking about X-O Manowar number 2 and who knows what else.
I mean, with me,
oh no, we cut off Matthew so rudely.
no, not at all. It's the perfect end of my day, Nick. Let me tell you, that could not have been better timed and better planned in the grand scheme of my karma. But now you'll never know.
What have we done?
That was Big Swallow's mind. No,
it was very good. That was very good. I always tell people like the role, like there's, in comedy there's like the straight man and there's the comic. I'm never the guy making the joke. I'm the butt end of the joke. So that was just perfect. It was good.
Well, not here. You are a special guest star who gives us all these tiny, awesome nuggets of Valiant information, and we're just super glad to have you back.
I am so glad to be back. It was such a blast last time. You guys are some of my favorite folks to talk to, especially Valiant. So this is such a treat for me. And we got a lot of stuff to get into with this issue. So
absolutely.
Okay. So the long wait's finally over. X-O Manowar. Oh man. Okay.
I'm trying to remember the last time I was here. Had we announced Savage and the return of Shadow Man yet, or is that still coming up?
I think we had Shadow Man, but we hadn't gotten a look at Savage yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No. So much has happened, guys. So much has happened.
Time's moving fast, man. Well, you're on the other end of it.
2020 is almost over. I'm telling you,
bro. We get some of that Savage Volume 2. Oh man, good stuff, man. Well, since we're talking about stuff coming up on the horizon, is there anything else you can tell us about, or can we wait for that later? Maybe hold on.
We got a few things. We got a few things that we've got going on, right? So I mean, we've got X-O2 dropped. What day is it? I think it was last week. Was it this week or last week? I can't even remember. No, it was last week. But I've been running in case you've seen it on social media, we ran a really fun campaign where if you took a photo of yourself holding a copy of X-O Manowar number 2 and used the hashtag, I'm going to be reaching out to you tonight and tomorrow to arrange for you to get a special piece of swag. And it is not the gold book of X-O2 that you've also seen floating around a little bit. It's a different piece of swag, something secret, something new, something cool. So that's been going on for a week. So we've been doing that. Well, honestly, you mentioned it before we started recording. The best part of my job is to try and be Santa Claus and be like, all right, we got the gold book, the first gold ever for a number 2 issue in Valiant history, right? Here we go, X-O2. That's out there. People can go ahead, show your Valiant support, hashtag us. Reach out to us on the DMs. We'll get you a gold book. The stores are getting into it. This new campaign we're doing, I'm going to try and keep doing with all of the big issues coming up where you interact with us. You're going to get some cool swag like that. Bloodshot is so close for that new arc in January. It's going to the printer, I think, in about a week and a half at this point. So we're seeing all the final colors and letterings coming in. One last shot. Tim Seeley, Pedro Andreo, Brett Booth for issue 10 coming in. We're going to bring some new folks into the main Valiant universe that you might have seen in a little film called Bloodshot. The return of Project Rising Spirit, the return of a major Bloodshot villain from the Salvation days. It's all coming to you in January. And I'm actually working on something right now to include in the comic itself via a little special QR code. For fans who go out and get an issue. There might be a little extra content in there. because we're doing some really cool promotional stuff for Bloodshot coming up. We got something dropping on YouTube next Wednesday. That's a little bit of a teaser of things to come. Let's see. Then we got Savage. We got Big Time Savage February 17th comes back. I'm so ready for this book. I'm so ready for fans to experience this. I got 2 issues in my inbox. I think the 3rd is just about drawn to at this point. They're working on the 4th as we speak. So the entirety of that miniseries is going to be done before issue 1 even comes close to hitting the stands, which is so cool. And then what else? Shadow Man's back in April. We got a new mystery project that I'm not allowed to talk about. Brand new IP though, that we can only tease and hint at. That's going to be coming. It looks like middle of next year, which could be really freaking dope. We will see. I can't say anything more, but you're going to see some announcements in the coming months about that. God, I'm seeing new pages for the Harbinger, the Shadow Man remastered game. Get ready. That thing is going to be dropping sooner than you think. And for anybody who's fans of those little things, what are they? They're like 7-inch things of characters that you're familiar with. You get them in packaging. Sometimes they're worth money later on online. You keep them, you play with them. What are they called? I don't know. But we got some cool stuff like that probably coming for announcements sooner than later too. But you didn't hear it here first. So, I mean, so now everyone, you can just stop watching. You can leave. We're all done. No, and what's really exciting too is Ruth and Hassan and Heather have up your sleeves for this character in particular. It's going to be pretty darn epic. So, how'd I do? Do I get invited back?
That's the show. I mean, that's a wrap. We're under 10 minutes. I mean, how do you follow that? I mean, come on. That's too cool.
You know how you follow it? Go read X-O Manowar #2. Start seeing the hints that I'm dropping for what's to come in this character. If you've not read it yet, what are you waiting for? If you were iffy on issue 1, you will not regret picking up issue 2. This book is delivering, in my opinion, this is a book that's delivering in a lot of ways and is setting up some really cool stuff for the character in his section of the Valiant universe. But what did you guys think of it? This is the real question. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle, questions, comments, concerns. Up? Nice.
Yeah.
Here's why, right? And I don't know if this was intentional. I'm going to assume it was intentional. But one of the things, I don't know if you read my review, but one of the things I said that was the big deal for this issue is if you've ever wondered what makes X-O different than like any other armor wielding character, like your Iron Man or so on and so forth, then that was specifically the issue that you should pick up. Because Whitaker, who's the nefarious big bad, or I'm assuming a little bit here. He's very Tony Stark-esque. And I think that comparison to who X-O is as a person to like I don't know, like almost an Earth 3 version of a character trope we've seen, kind of butt heads, is, in my opinion, genius. But also, like, that is great for like people who've never read X-O. Like, you want to
absolutely
just dive in and see, like, okay, well, what makes him different from, like, I don't know, like a Green Lantern, you know, because they fly around in space. Iron Man has armor. Like, what makes X-O Manowar special? And by the end of that second issue, I should say, but really by the end of the first one, if you've never read it, but by the end of the second one, pick up both.
Yes.
It's clear that you're on a completely different ride that you're not going to get anywhere else, and that was just like,
are we okay with spoilers for this one? Do we have like a disclaimer? Yeah. Spoilers.
No.
So
we're a few days after its release. Like, let's go for it.
You've had a week. Go read this thing. If you haven't read this thing, we're getting into spoiler country. I totally agree with you, Ken. I think that the creative team on here with Troy Whitaker, it's an incredible foil for a man out of time like X-O Manowar. Troy Whitaker is on the cutting edge. He's that Elon Musk, sort of Jeff Bezos. You know, he's a visionary and he's a futurist. And he is a man about the morals and the understanding of heroism today, the commerciality of that, the popularity, the branding, awareness, the definition of what a hero is to Eric versus what a hero is to Troy and what it is to society are three different things, right? And you have the man of the modern world and of the future in Troy Whitaker, and you have him trying to become an ally and help out a man out of time whose morals are absolute, whose code of conduct, whose principles he is absolutely certain. He is 100% certain as Eric that he is correct in how to be a hero and how to help people. And by the end of issue 2, all of that gets questioned. Everything because of the loss of life. And that is a brilliant place to put your hero, right? Like that is the goal. Just like Hal Jordan has to, at some point, have a crisis of confidence on whether he's still got the willpower for it. Eric of Dacia has to be forced into a conundrum of, am I actually a hero or am I a villain thinking he's a hero? You know, and do I know how to save this world? And now he has to do the one thing he doesn't want to do, that no prince, that no king ever wants to admit doing, which is he has to ask for help. And he has to admit that he may not be equipped to be the hero that he wants to be. And that's a hard pill to swallow. So I love that. I love where issue 2 ends. I love where it puts that character.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really just like Ken said, it's kind of a brilliant step. And one of the things I notice most is he's a man out of time in a world that's just so rapidly evolving.
Yes.
And there's a great moment where you've got Shannara trying to explain just the depth of their like technological prowess and how they can help with everything from taxes to an essay and basically anything else you might need an internet connection for. And this kind of puts Eric even further into that position where it feels like he's unsure of what to do next. And that perfectly sets up what you get in the ending.
Well, and that's the beauty of it, right? It's the world changes, the world evolves, society evolves, and it doesn't evolve at the same pace. And the words that we use and the ideals that we have also evolve. And I think one of the great things they're doing is in so many ways, they're showing his loneliness, right? His isolation in the modern world, which is really cool. I love that scene though, where Shannara is like, "Yes, I can do all these taxes for you," and da 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 da. It's just like, and like Shannara is great. I love. What do you guys think of this relationship between Eric and Shannara? This like almost buddy cop sort of dynamic.
I think it's cool because there's like if you've been a long time X-O fan, right? There's times where it's like you get it, right? Like he's like a warrior king kind of thing. So it's hard to stay on brand, but find new areas to explore. And so taking the two of them and showing like how the two of them compose X-O Manowar, right? Like Arik is part of it, Shannara is part of it, but neither of them separately is X-O Manowar. It takes both of them working in concert, you know? And so it's amazing to just see like that headcanon like really play out and see, especially when, you know, this is like you said earlier about Eric being a hero, is that like we've seen him be a warrior, you know, we've seen him destroy aliens, we've seen him be a king in outer space, we've seen him be a king on Earth, we've seen him do a lot of things, but he's never properly stepped into that like Superman-esque role, a dude as powerful as him being a force for good kind of gets stuck in by default, you know? It's almost like you don't have a choice. Like you have all this power, you know, like
I think there's a really cool argument to be made that on some level Arik is now trying to be the role he thinks he's supposed to be, but has never actually tried being on some level. I mean, he worked with Gate and he worked, you know, he was an agent, he was an emperor, he was, you know, a prince, he was a revolutionary, he was an upriser in many ways, but now he's being held to a standard that he was born for, right? To be put on that pedestal, to be a leader of men, to be an example for them. But at the same point in time, now you actually got to walk the walk, and can you do it? So I agree, and I think that it's a great. I think what Dennis is doing is he's examining the most significant relationship in the history of X-O Manowar that has actually never been explored this way. I always equate it to, are you guys Doctor Who fans at all? Have you ever?
A little.
So, all right, Ken, you know what I'm saying. So Neil Gaiman has one of the best penned episodes in the history of Doctor Who in a like 60-year, I think at this point, history. The Doctor flies around in a TARDIS, always has. For one episode, Neil Gaiman actually personified the TARDIS as a person so that they could have a conversation. And it is the actors change, the supporting characters change, the mythos evolves, but that is the one constant in that mythos is the Doctor and his TARDIS. And for one episode, you actually get to explore that relationship in a way that no one ever did. And you wonder, why the hell did no one ever do that? Dennis is doing something here for a character for 30 years who's never really gotten to have a back and forth conversation with the armor that makes him the most powerful force in the galaxy. And now you get an entire series where you get to explore that relationship. And it is the central relationship, I would argue, of the entire mythos.
That is so much, and I already just don't want it to end. That's my biggest fear already. Excuse me, I'm in love with Shannara so much that I'm like, oh no, are we setting up for tragedy here?
Time will tell. You got to read, man. Keep going. Issues 3 and 4 get way deeper into that relationship though too, and Arc 2 also will have some really big ramifications for their relationship that I'm very excited for, because this is really all these themes, all these character evolutions, but it's not just Arik who's evolving, it is also Shannara. And so you see their journeys side by side in a lot of ways that people aren't expecting. And it's cool, you know, it's a new wrinkle. It's something fresh for the character, but he's still very much Arik. So, and that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's some of the best parts of it is you haven't lost that characterization of Arik at all. You've only added this new dimension of Shannara in that relationship that you can actually, it's a tangible relationship and not something that isn't explored, you know, on the panel. And
yeah, and I think too the other wrinkle is you get to see what the world thinks of them, not just how they think of themselves or, you know, other members that you follow, you know, their series of. You don't just see what Harada thinks of Arik. You don't just see what Ninjak thinks of. You get to see what a family in Harlem thinks of him. You know, it's like it's a very different perspective and it's a different viewpoint than you get to see. And if he wants to be a hero of the people, you get to see the people in this time, which I really like.
Yeah,
and I like that because it's kind of like almost like a throwback to like, you know, classic Valiant, where like, you know, Arik was very much, you know, he was in control of Orb Industries and he was doing all this crazy stuff with the spider aliens, so on and so forth. But at the same time, like, you know, he had a regular just cast of normal people, you know, and his relationships with them weren't perfect. And you got to see like the ramifications of those shortcomings, and or like when he let Randy wear the armor and he just started fighting and stuff, and you know, so you get to see like there's more to him and the armor than what's, you know, meets the eye, to steal a Transformers phrase. But also it's like, it's just cool to remember that this is Valiant, and there's always like that, even in the most fantastic stories, there's still that grounded humanism that makes it stand out from the pack, you know. And it's such a subtle, cool thing. I dig it, man. I dig it.
Well, and that's the thing, right? That was you hit you're picking up on a lot, Ken, and I appreciate it because it means that we're doing our jobs, you know, as the company is, you know, when Heather Antos came on board, you know, and she was rereading all of the old Valiants, you know, for X-O, and she was given the reins for this character, that was one of the first things she remarked, is that you, at one point, X-O had normal people in the cast. You could see you had imperfect relationships. And that was really something, you know, that the previous creative teams, that wasn't what the exploration was. It wasn't part of the story that they were telling. It wasn't part of that journey yet. And now, because he's so well established, as a force on Earth, as so well established in the galaxy. It's time. Where else do you look? Well, now you can bring in that cast of characters. You can get back to that grounded humanism that is one of the hallmarks of what separates a Valiant book from a Marvel book, right? Marvel characters are gifted from the outset. Peter Parker is a brilliant scientist without being bit by a radioactive spider. Doctor Doom is a brilliant scientist without the trauma. Reed Richards is a brilliant scientist without the accident. These are already extraordinary people. So where's your hook into them? Eric is by birthright special, but he's not inherently in and of himself necessarily gifted in that sense. And he grows into his gifts. He grows into his powers, but he's still very human and relatable. And I think that's one of the most exciting things to see. And what's more relatable than believing you are absolutely right and finding out you were absolutely wrong and the consequences of that. And that's what you get in issue 2. And quite frankly, I'm looking at issue 3 right now. You're going to get it in issue 3 a lot more too, and where it goes with the warlords and what's going on in the Ukraine. So.
Oh, and if I could just take a moment, like I would love to shout out just the spectacular work from both Heather Antos and Lisa Hawkins. We had Heather on the show, and she was talking about Shadow Man and how it's like, how has this never been just an actual horror comic? Because that's what it works so perfectly. And then you've got Lisa talking about the spy noir thriller influences that are coming into Ninjak, and you're like, yeah, it's such a no-brainer direction for these characters.
So here's why. I have theories on this. I think that part of it is at times Valiant has pigeonholed itself into being superhero first and the genre second. And I think one of the things that you're going to see coming up from Valiant and these books is it's genre first, superhero second. And I don't think that's a bad thing. That's a very interesting evolution. But yes, you're going to... I don't describe Shadow Man coming up by Cullen Bunn as a superhero book first. I say, this is a horror book. This is you want Harrow County, you want Revival, you want Walking Dead, or you want George A. Romero. This is your read. No. And also he's heroic, and it's like, you almost take the super out of it, on some level. And he's a hero in a horror book. X-O, I think, is the closest we get to, I think it's still very sci-fi, but at the same point in time, this is our statement on superheroes and on heroism today. This is where it really fits that mold. Ninjak is absolutely balls to the wall, spy noir first, superhero later. These are anti-heroes by their design, when they were originally created. So we get back to those roots, we stick with it. And I think at times we limited ourselves in how far we could go down into exploring the tone and the atmosphere and the general direction of the characters by the mandate, make it a superhero book first. And all companies go through phases. Marvel's gone through phases like that. DC goes through phases like that. Even Image for a while, when they were launching their, Kirkman superhero universe with Invincible, Guardians of the Globe, Amazing Wolfman, even they were going in that direction for a while. So I think it's just part of the evolution as a company, as a mythos that you go to. And now we're ready to really get neck deep into the genre elements of these characters and explore those possibilities, because that will feel fresh to our readers and to the fans. And that's really cool.
Yeah. And it's also worked intrinsically well for X-O in specific, because it seems also like a no-brainer move to let that character be the statement on superheroes.
Yes.
And as we can see in 2 issues, it's worked so well already.
I can't wait for you guys to read issue 3. Man. I will say this, the beginning of the major change for X-O happens, it starts in issue 3 and solidifies and is done in issue 4. So pick up issue 3 to see what I'm talking about. It's so good. It's so good, guys. It's so good. Here's how good it is. We're on track that X-O 4 is going to probably sell better than X-O 3 even did, which rarely ever happens in comics, that in issue 4, the end of an arc, as it were, ends up being a better sale than issue 3. So it's the response has been fantastic. People are definitely loving it, which is really great to see, and they're hungry for it. They're hungry for more X-O, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Can we give a shout out to Emilio Leso and Ruth Redmond and Hassan on here for their work, because the artwork is destroying.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that's another thing I threw in with the review I did on number 2 is the art team you put together. It was like you guys needed the A team, and you had the money, and you knew where to find them, and you slapped it together and made it happen, because it's the perfect combination of like bright energy and like kinetic just art, but it's not overly dramatic in the action, and then like the humorous parts are just like right on top, you know what I'm saying? Like they're just right at the right level they need to be at. And it's not every day that you get a creative team that comes together so well, from the writing all the way to the lettering and back, you know, inking, color, and so on, that it's all in step, you know what I mean? Like, and balancing that many, you know, you have like a serious action book, but then you also have like a human drama, but then you also have, you know, some comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just balancing all three, just like, you know, like it's on a saucer or something. It's just fantastic. Love it.
No, and it's you know, I think Emilio, from what I can tell, was really, really excited to tackle a character like this, you know, and, you know, he had done some Star Wars stuff, I believe, earlier. And so he'd been playing a lot in kind of, you know, other people's sandbox, but Star Wars, the restrictions are steep, you know, they're pretty tight from what I've heard. But so here you get to flex your muscles a little bit more, and you get to do things that, you know, you get to play in a different way than you do at other companies, which is always a big compliment that we hear from the creative teams.
Yeah.
And Dennis, you know, I mean, I've rarely seen a writer put in so much prep work to the characters and to a series, so that he was ready to. I can't imagine, like, when Heather had to hand it off to Emilio, it was pretty much like, you know what you're getting, you know where you can run with this ball, which is really cool. Hassan is probably one of the, if not the best letterer in the business, and the brilliance of a letterer is that it's not a flashy job. It's not something that you notice as much when it's done right, but you automatically know something's off when it's done wrong. And so, like, he's such an unsung hero, and letterers are unsung heroes in the industry. I'm working on a comic right now, and I made it a point, like, to go out and get a hell of a letter that was like, you're going to make or break this, and you don't even realize it. And
I mean, really, Hassan puts out he tweets pages of just the letter bubbles, and that is artwork. I could just watch those all day. Like, it's really
true artistry. It's true artistry. And Ruth Redmond on colors is just this incredible force of nature who just gets it. And she's what every colorist needs to be. She's professional, she's punctual, and she kicks ass. And it's a great marriage. And there are days where I see the pencils come in from Amelia, and I'm like, oh man, this shouldn't ever be colored. And then I see the colors from Ruth, and I'm like, oh man, I never want to see this book in black and white ever again.
I love that. I really do, because a lot of times, like, even if something's like not really fitting for you, right, the artwork is spot on. If, like, maybe you're like, okay, maybe the dynamics between Shunhara and Arik, like, maybe they shouldn't be joking right now, but you're kind of feasting your eyes on this awesome sci-fi work that it just keeps you in it, just no matter what, and that's such a strength for the book.
I think, Ken, you made a really interesting point there too, where it's like there are times where when you get into certain art styles, it becomes like a painting on the page, you know, but in that way that it becomes static. You know, it's iconic imagery, but it can feel kind of, you know, you're watching still images and you're telling but Emilio has such beautiful motion in his style and in his line work and in his inking, that it really allows for it. It's still gorgeous, but it is carrying momentum with it. And the colors then play on that, and the lettering plays on that, and the script allows the pacing. Because Dennis, from my understanding, Dennis doesn't finalize the dialogue until the the art is in. You know, that's really when he solidifies everything. So like I'll send out a working copy to press for like X-O 3, and it's like, by the way, all the dialogue might change on this book in the next week. The event, I'll say, because that's the Marvel method, right? Like that's what you do: art first, script second.
Yeah.
But what's beautiful about that is that Dennis is able to then go in and let the artwork do the work for him, and he doesn't have to, you know, overwrite it, which is some writers have an issue with and are very controlling about their dialogue.
Yeah.
And it works for them, and some it doesn't, and some it does. But Dennis is it's such a collaborative team. They're so wonderful bouncing off each other in that way.
Yeah. And it has a feel almost like the Bloodshot title under Lamming and Booth, really. It captures a cinematic feel where
Definitely
you really feel that it's epic. It's kind of high intensity, and the motion of it, you're right, it really plays to the strengths of the characters.
So our publisher, Fred Pierce, had a couple edicts for Heather when she was picking up this book. And one of them is, make this story feel epic. Make this journey feel epic. Even if it takes place in one location for an entire issue, make it feel epic. And I think the team is doing a really wonderful job of building this epic as it's coming along too. So it's pretty awesome to see that.
Yeah, it's got that feel like I think the last time I really got that same from that, like that level of brightness and kineticism, was almost like Batman, Superman, like Public Enemies, right? Like when you see like animated film, and then you go back and read, it's like that makes sense. Like I could see everything in X-O 1 and 2 in that format, like in an animated movie, and it would look exactly the same, just like in motion.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
it's like you could just take it and just like, you know, if you just read it fast enough, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's exactly what it needs to look like.
I will.
It's such a cool thing.
I will make the argument that Public Enemies is maybe the best work of Ed McGuinness's career as an artist. Like that thing is just, to your point, like it's brilliant storytelling in a very interesting style that does, like, you're absolutely right. Like it lends itself to the animation in such an amazing way. And I agree. I think if you took the entire first 4 issues of X-O, that I've seen, but you guys will see 3 and 4 soon, and you made it one animated feature, it would probably be one of the easiest translations for an animation studio to do. because of the style for Emilio is super accessible, and it lends itself to that kind of adaptation. And he's used to that because he's had to work on adapted properties, and he's worked on animation, I believe, as well. So he comes from a similar background. So you can definitely see it lending that self.
Yeah. And I have to latch on to the word accessible because that is something that stands out about this book. It's not something like we talked about after issue 1. It is a book that you can jump into, and it's a great book to get to know X-O and what makes him stand apart. And I wanted to see if maybe you could speak more towards the accessibility from a long-time fan, because I know there's a lot of questions going on. Like, you know, we've read a lot of X-O going on, and this is great for new fans who want to get a feel for this character. But what about everything I've read leading up to this? Can you speak anything to that?
I can speak a bit to that. So here's the balancing act that we always have to speak to, right? You've got to keep continuity, but you can't always let continuity be the only thing that drives the next story, right? Because you do have to find a way to welcome new readers and also returning readers, lapsed readers who maybe have gone away for a couple years. They've watched the Comic Storian videos or the Variant Comics videos to keep up, but they haven't actually picked up the issue. So you've got to be able to pick a point to start the new story that allows a new reader, a lapsed reader, and a faithful, hardcore reader in all at the same point in time. Very hard to do. But that is the job of a #1 issue in many ways. So the things that I can talk about, I think, for X-O in particular is keep your eyes peeled for some stuff about the history of the armor. of Shanhara.
Okay.
Keep your eyes
Okay.
peeled for possibly some hints and some Easter eggs about certain familial relations, about his people and where they're at in present day. So keep your eyes peeled for those. You're not going to see as much of it in the first arc, but you're gonna continue seeing that sort of stuff build a little bit more and more in arc 2, especially. So
it sounds like you guys are definitely like in this for the long haul. Like like that's what I like to hear, man. That's what I like to hear. Like that gets me. I was already hyped. Now I'm more hyped because like that's what we need. We need yes.
Oh, listen, if our master plan goes the way it goes, I mean, holy crap, the future of X-O is going to make your jaws drop. If we can get there, and I believe we can get there, I think there's a lot of really kick-ass and cool storytelling that's coming in the next year, 2 years for this character that y'all are just going to be like, some of you may call me on to curse me out at certain points, and I'm going to have to say, trust the process, but but it ain't ever going to be boring. That's for sure. But no, I think it's, part of the fun of characters like these is how much crap can you throw at them? How far down can you bring them before they come back up? How much can you break them down before you build them back up? And oh boy, what we have in plan for the long term of this character is it's a lot. It's stuff you probably haven't seen since V1 in the early 90s in terms of the level of change and the level of rigmarole we're going to put this character through and what we can explore. So
Okay.
Mike is muted, but we're already getting a taste of that.
Okay.
Really, at the end of issue 2. I mean, there's the ending is basically with him on his knees, like coming to the realization
you ain't seen nothing yet, guys.
Like we're just starting the path down.
See, you think that you're here, you're actually here.
Oof.
And by the time we're gonna take you up here. Like that's where we're going.
It's too much.
Okay, I got one last question, but I think honestly that's probably where we should. Like,
guys,
I don't know
listen, just because we're finishing up X-O 2, but there's a bajillion other things. We got pro wrestling to touch base on. We got Savage to talk about. We got Shadow Man. We got video games. We got all sorts of stuff. So as long as you want me, I'm here.
Oh my gosh!
Speaking of Shadow Man, okay, I'm glad that you said that because
go for it.
Cullen Bunn did mention that one thing he would like to work on would be a Shadow Man X-O team up book.
Someone else mentioned that, and his name was Dennis Hopeless. Wouldn't it be cool? Have you ever seen X-O and Shadow Man in a crossover before? Like, when was the last time you saw that? I think it'd be really cool. I don't know. Maybe someday. Let's see how they go.
Like what a concept.
Here's the best.
I can accept that answer.
Dennis and Cullen hate each other, so I don't know if they could ever really work together. That's the only problem. They absolutely, every interview you hear them talk, they just talk smack on each other every time. So I don't know. I think they're neighbors though, but it's contentious. So maybe if the creative team could get along and we could, maybe if they co-architect that, wouldn't that be neat someday? Maybe. We'll see. Who knows? But I've heard them both say that in separate interviews, that they would both love to get a hand. Because Dennis, if you watch the Baltimore Comic-Con panel, and if you watch actually his episode, if you go right now to the Valiant YouTube page, shameless plug, and check out the latest episode of Valiant Voices, which I don't know if you guys watch, but he talks about he pitched Shadow Man back in like 2011, excuse me, before the 2012 run. And that Shadow Man is one of his absolute favorite characters, and he's always wanted to get his hands on him. So I mean, there's some tug of war going on between those two.
I mean, that's the story right there, right? You get that classic like bashing heads that'll play to those dynamics, and then they'll make up and be friends in the end.
See, what I love, what would be cool for me is that it's horror and sci-fi. And you don't always see those horror and sci-fi superheroes, to be specific, and you don't always see those genres mash up as often as you would think.
Yeah.
So I would be really intrigued to see what those two would cook up. But I bet it would be absolutely epic, and I bet neither character would be the same when it was done. Oh man.
Definitely not. I think, and Shadow Man's kind of just like the start of what we have to be excited for. There's so much coming with like
characters. Honestly, I think I would argue Savage is the start of to be excited for. Like that is truly like I can't wait to see what this book does, because we have a lot of really kick-ass plans for that character. Some of it's going to depend on the response from you guys. It's going to depend on, on sales, as some of this obviously does. But that character, by what this new series for Savage does, it's going to open up an entire realm of storytelling possibility that we have never done in Valiant.
Really?
Yes, I can say that definitively. And I think that there's so much possibility there. So if the response is strong, we get more of it. So I'm really hoping you guys come out and support that one. As I think that the creative team on there has such an interesting read, and they've got not just a great short-term series, but the plans that they can take this character and take the Valiant universe with this character is mind-boggling. Shadow Man does so in a completely different way, and is mind bonkers for that. And then to see how all these characters might come together in a 2022, kind of scenario would be really cool for how all these directions are going. So we'll see how it goes, but there's a lot to be excited about. And the ride begins with one last shot, giving a major hurrah for Bloodshot, Savage in February, Shadow Man's coming in April, the new book that's coming out middle of next year, Harbinger, Ninjak. I mean, the second arc for X-O. The amount of incredible stories coming your way, guys. Like I'm just so glad we're finally starting to get there.
Yeah, you've been sitting on these awesome stories.
I've been sitting on this for a year.
Okay. Now where do we go? Where do we go from there?
I really want to touch back on at the start of the show. You mentioned that Valiant had acquired a new IP that we can look forward to.
Not acquired. We're creating something brand new from scratch. So it's something that's being worked on. It's been worked on for a long time at this point, and I'm really stoked to see how it's all coming together and what you guys think of it, because it's going to be a really cool taste of something a little different, a little something that feels familiar but is actually very different. So it's neat. Okay. And it's not going to be in the same vein of like taking the name of a character and revamping. This is true new, which I'm really excited to show you guys and see how it's all coming together.
Okay. I'm pretty excited for that, like especially under this new direction, like a focus on genre, bringing back all the flagship characters. What does something entirely new to the Valiant universe look like at a time like this, when we're kind of all looking back at like these Valiant classic inspirations and all this cool stuff we want to see? It's a curveball to be like, well, there's something else that we're just going to drop that's entirely new that you have to expect.
I'm telling you, I think stay tuned. It's gonna be a few more months. I don't think we're not gonna probably announce it before the end of the year, because that's only 3 weeks away. But stay tuned and get hyped and start speculating now, because I don't think anybody will get this right though. Whatever you're thinking, it's probably not this.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to. Okay, I got a question on that one then. Is there any hints in anything that's out right now, or do we got to keep buying stuff to get some hints on what this new IP might be?
The only way you find out is keep reading.
That's what I like. Okay. Okay.
Like there's
all right.
such a direction
all
to all this, and it's with Valiant all the time. When you get 2 years down the road, you can look back on the last 2 years and be like, "How did I not see this coming?" And I know that's happening right now. I know it is. We need more.
I'll tell you what, though, to talk about something recent, I'm very excited. I want you guys go out there and get X-O Manowar #3 when it drops later this month. What date is it coming out again? I've got so many dates in my head. Let me look it up real quick. I think it's the 23rd, just in time for your Christmas stocking. Yes, it is. So curl up Christmas Eve with X-O Manowar #3. Either you're waiting to open presents or you've already opened everything and you've totally gorged yourself. So
there you go. That'll be my birthday present to myself.
But again, one of the big changes for X-O begins in issue 3 and caps off in issue 4. So this is a pivotal issue. Make sure you check it out. If you love the human element of it, you're going to see it. If you love the crazy place that it ended on issue 2, you're going to see some crazy payoffs for that. The relationship between Whitaker and Art continues to grow as he's come to Troy for help and trying to figure out, okay, now I'm going to actually listen to you. Okay. Send me where I got to go. What do I need to do? How do I become this hero? And we'll see where it leads him. And it's very fun stuff.
Okay. All right. We're gonna wrap it up on that one because I got to process all of this information that you just dropped. Okay. So you heard it here first. We're talking. We didn't get to video games. Well, we'll save that for next time. But action figure, X-O Manowar #2. Go buy it right now. It's on the shelves. Go get it if you don't have a copy. If you have a copy, go get another one because sharing is caring. It's the season for that. X-O Manowar #3. Clearly, you cannot miss it. You've heard it. You've heard it from the source. X-O Manowar #3. Must grab of the holiday season. Yeah. So, Matt, go ahead. Go ahead. Say whatever you got to say. Just drop some more knowledge. Oh, come on.
I don't know. I think that's a time. Here's what I'm gonna do. How were your Thanksgivings?
That's a good transition. We did the stay-at-home one. Ours was real chill. Lord of the Rings binge and a few comics.
Love it. Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm happy to hear it. What matters is everyone staying safe and keeping good, and you got to be a little thankful for something. At least, if nothing else, we can be thankful 2020 is almost over. And the wait for X-O 3 is only a couple weeks away. So
I'm definitely weird. Yeah.
I don't know. Any other questions? Anything else? I mean, I'm here.
Let's see. I do want to follow up because we haven't got a whole lot of, I guess, a direction for where the Valiant universe is going with the return of the flagship Harbinger series. And we're getting some little hints at just the return of all these flagship characters. Mm-hmm. But what's the buzz around I guess right now, the digital Valiant office on the return of such a fundamental aspect of the Valiant universe where so many things are pivotal on this team?
The universe is not absolute.
Ooh.
That's all I can say. The universe is not absolute.
I think we've heard that before. Ken has latched onto that.
it's a good turn of the phrase. Let's put it that way.
They're gonna do Unity Saga again, but
I never said that.
Okay, all right, I'll let that one go. But
you keep saying it. You keep saying it. You keep running away. I want it on the record. I have never said that.
Ken has said it almost every guest.
I'm adding a third one. X-O, all right? X-O, Shadow Man, Unity. I don't know how you're going to do that, but that's going to be crazy. And I've been on this one since 2019. But Shadow Man, Punk Mambo, we know that Punk Mambo's coming back. We know that Cullen is probably going to be the one to write it because he wrote the last one. And now he's doing Shadow Man. So I'm just going to call it now. You feel free to confirm it. What?
It feels like a no-brainer. It
I
does.
feel like that might be a thing.
I mean, it feels like a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's just.
It does feel that way. I agree. It feels that way for sure. I think that here's the beauty and the frustrating. The only thing 2020 did was slow us down. It
Ooh.
didn't stop us.
Yes.
So that's the thing. So I think there's a ton of stuff going on. I think you make a very interesting point. Punk was written by Cullen, and now Cullen's writing Shadow Man, and and certainly Punk's coming back at some point. Just look at Adam Gorham's Instagram feed. But so there's definitely I don't know. I've heard worse arguments lately for things than what you're laying down, Ken.
Okay. All right. Oh, all right. Video games. Let's talk about video games real quick. Okay. So, Shadow Man. Okay. 64-bit remastered.
I'm so ready. I'm so ready.
Is there any other games that you can hint at, tease? Turok 3, maybe a trilogy collection. Armorines. I don't know. Anything in there you can tease?
Here's what I can say. As far as like going back to the old games and remasters. My understanding is there are plenty of discussions, and there are lots of things that they would like to do. We've got to see how this first game does, as with most things. Yeah. But I would argue that most things are possible in terms of the future, with the remaster stuff. I actually bought a buddy of mine he's a new father, and for his Christmas and birthday gifts, I bought him an N64 with 2 controllers. And what did I buy him? I bought him GoldenEye, because that was the game he got. And I bought him WCW NWO Revenge, because it's maybe the best pro wrestling video game of all time. WWF No Mercy on N64 might also take that cake. But also, one of the things I'm planning to get him as a stocking stuffer is the original Shadow Man game as well. But the nostalgia's there, man. What's old is new again. You want to relive it. And what's really cool is, if you saw the screenshots from the IGN post a couple of weeks ago, there's some new stuff in there, it looks like, which is really neat. So it's not just a straight up remaster from what we can tell. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at what you see.
Nice. And I really love that. I love that Valiant's kind of willing to take some of that nostalgia, like you said, or something that's older, and bring it to a fresh audience. But I have to wonder, is it a precursor for something more in Valiant expanding into maybe like a AAA title or something like that?
Could be, could not. Time will tell. I think that one of the cool things I'm really excited for is I'm super excited what Blowfish Studios is working on too right now, in addition to Night Dive. And we announced the deal with them last year. We're starting to see the character designs coming in. They're working on the scripts for the game right now. It's getting real, guys. It's getting real. And it's, we haven't done a proper console game since Acclaim owned the company.
Yeah.
So, and you're getting one, it's been announced. We're doing console games.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, and I use the plural on that purposefully. What and when and what comes first and what the timing is, all will be revealed as we get into 2021, I dare say.
Yeah, see, that's what I love about Valiant. The Shadow Man announcement is huge. It's exciting. And in the back of your head, you're like, oh, there's so much more to come. If they're doing
so much more.
Yeah,
guys, there's so much more.
Yeah, that's the fun. That's what keeps us coming back every week, just constantly needing more. And thank you.
Oh God, and we'll build it back up too. We'll build back up that release schedule. We'll build back up to all these really cool things. Again, the only thing 2020 really did is it just delayed, but it has not stopped. So
amazing.
What else you got?
Ken trying to catch his breath.
What about?
I mean, do you want my blood type? Do you want
Is
Is it a spoiler or
it's Valiant, it's me, it's whatever you want to ask about. I'm an open book.
We do have a couple of comments.
Sure.
Universe review, thinking Harada is coming back, and I mean, it is
dead.
right there too. It could happen.
We did a whole thing called The Life and Death of Toya Harada. He's dead. Leave him be. You're getting Peter. Come on.
Let's see. X-O Iron Man remastered. Is that something you'd like to see?
Would I like to see it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will I absolutely see it? Time will tell.
Okay. And I could also see Livewire as a character in Watch Dogs 3.
Oh, dude.
That's game over, right?
That's game over. That's game over right there. We just hit the kill screen. We're done. She'd be awesome. She would absolutely wreck that thing. She would absolutely wreck that thing.
Would make
that's great. That's great.
Inspiration for what a Livewire game could be, even if it kind of operated and had that feel. Oh, so epic.
It's not that far off in terms of tone of what Vita Ayala did, and Raul and Tana. So that character would lend itself real well. Amanda would kick some ass in a game like that. I agree.
Oh yeah,
wholeheartedly.
Oh goodness. Okay, well it's been an hour, and
let's do it.
We keep you here all night. We really will.
I would do it. I would say.
But we've got to follow up again on X-O number 3. This might have to be a thing because this series doesn't look to slow down anytime soon.
By all means, we can come back 3 and 4. Book me for the week afterwards. We'll make it happen.
That's a plan.
You heard it, folks. You heard it. Got to keep him to his word because he said he'd do
it. I told you before I would do it for 2, and here we are. So
it's true. That's true. Well, we'll be looking for you for 3. But in the meantime, guys, keep buying comics. Support your local comic book shops.
Please.
If you haven't already, like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, follow Valiant on Twitter as well, Instagram, all that good stuff. And as always, stay valiant.